Today we're going to talk about and demonstrate 3 sitting meditation postures. Now, the posture in which you meditate is important for a few reasons. Posture or poor posture can result in pain, numbness, and tingling in your extremities and be an unnecessary source of distraction, and we don't need any more of those. So a good posture enables open flow of energy throughout the body, and that's why it's really important to have that. Now, there are times when a standing meditation might be appropriate, but this can be strenuous on the body, especially if done for long periods of time. Also, lying down might seem like an easy solution, and it's appropriate in some cases, but tends to cause some sleepiness. That's why in almost all cases, I recommend a sitting posture of some type for a sustainable meditation practice. We're going to start off by talking about posture using the Sevenfold Posture of Vairocana. Don't worry about remembering any of these names. But the first point regards the legs, and we'll talk about the Vajra posture, which is also known as the full lotus position. Now, my body is so tight, I can't even get into this posture. But if my arms and my hands were my legs and my thighs and my feet, they would look like this, where my feet are resting on my thighs. Like I said, I can't even get into it. So the next best thing is the Sattva posture here, which is just simple cross-legged. Now, ideally, I would be able to fully rest my legs on the ground here. I'm not able to do that, so they're kind of floating here, which causes tension in my back. So this isn't a great posture for me, and I'll talk about some alternatives down the road here. Now, the next point is your hands, and there are a couple options here. One is to simply rest palms down on the knees. The other is called the gesture of equanimity, and that involves palms up, right hand resting in the left hand, thumbs lightly touching about a hand's width below the navel. And that's it, very simple. Now, the third point is the back, which all the way from the pelvis all the way up the spine, it's straight, not rigid. You're not overarching, but you're also not slouching. So I've certainly noticed that as I meditate and become more aware of my posture, that awareness goes with me throughout the day and I have good posture. But I also notice while meditating that I tend to slouch and have to straighten up. So that's just part of your practice. Now, the next point is the shoulders, which should be in a neutral position, as opposed to allowing them to roll forward or extending too far back. Now, if you notice that after meditating for a while and trying to maintain this posture that you have some soreness, you probably have weak back, that you're not alone in that. Is upper cross syndrome is what it's called. Very common, where the shoulders roll forward, there's some slouching, and then to compensate for all that, we tilt our necks up. So if you get into some physical therapy and strengthen these muscles, a good posture will become natural posture and it won't seem so hard. Which leads me into my next point, which is number 5, and that's what's commonly called the neck tilt, but I prefer to think of it as a chin tuck. So you're just tucking in the chin, which sends kind of your spine straight up in the back. The next point is the tongue, which you should basically place the tip of your tongue to the roof of your mouth, just gently so, which will cause the saliva to just sort of naturally go down your throat rather than accumulating in your mouth, necessitating you having to swallow, which is distracting. And then finally is the eyes. This is the 7th point, and traditionally what is recommended is to allow the eyes to gently look forward, at least at nose level or slightly down, and at a fixed point. Now, you're not staring at this point, so your eyes aren't focused necessarily, but you just gently look that way. Now, I find that to be very difficult. I blink a lot, I'm distracted by stuff, and so I usually just meditate with eyes closed, and that's a very valid option as well. All right, so before I move on to some of the other postures, I want to mention a few props here. First is what's called a zabuton, and that's just this big flat pillow, and it's really that simple. It just provides a little bit of padding against the floor. Now, these are just sometimes called meditation cushions. They're also called a zafu. These are all Japanese terms. These come in various shapes and sizes and thicknesses and whatnot, with different materials inside them. In my case, I always just use 2. And then another option is called a Seizo bench, and I'll talk about the Seizo posture in a moment, but that involves basically it's usually wood. Sometimes the legs to it are fixed and sometimes they're on a hinge, so they collapse, and that just makes it easier to transport around, and sometimes it comes with a cushion or not on it. Now, you don't need any of these things to meditate, so don't let that be a barrier for you. You could use pillows, you can use blankets, or like one of my teachers, he literally rolls up a doormat and bends it in half and has a twine wrapped around it. So you don't need any expensive solutions here to meditate. But if you do want something like this, I have a few examples with links in the comments below. All right, if you're like me and lacking flexibility, particularly in your hips, then sitting in a cross-legged position becomes very uncomfortable very quickly. That's why I sit in what's called the Seizo posture, which is how I'm sitting now. Really, the only difference from the 7 items that I outlined before is the first one involving the legs. So I just need to sit on something that raises my pelvis above my legs so that I'm not otherwise sitting on my legs, which would cut off blood flow and be uncomfortable after a little bit. And so you can get a Seizo bench, or I just have these 2 kind of thinner zafus that I stack on top of each other, and this works for me. So try this out, see if it works for you. If for any reason you can't sit in a floor position, floor sitting position, no problem, sit in a chair. Ideally it's one that doesn't rock too much or swivel, although this chair swivels and you can make do with just about any chair just fine. My recommendation is just to keep your feet flat on the ground. Try to maintain as much stability as you can, and really apply all the other principles we've talked about here today, including keeping your spine up straight. So just because you have a backrest in the chair doesn't mean you should use it. And again, that just is similar to what I said about lying down. This can be passive and kind of induce some sleepiness and too deep of a relaxation. Whereas if you're keeping your spine straight, you stay engaged and can really focus on the meditation. So that's it for today. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe. And thank you for watching, and be well.